What's up, y'all? Today I got my November reading log. Every book I read. This one's, I think I got a stack of 10, 11 books over here that I read this month. Not too many. I have one like really big one that I've been like chipping away at that I talked about last video, but a lot of just like slim trade paperbacks. Pretty light, pretty light. So we'll just get straight into it with Marth Valis. It's by EPHK, written and drawn, and this book is very small. Let me put it's a normal trade paperback next to it. It's a little guy, um, and it is. I wanted to say wordless. It's not wordless, but all words in this comic are in another, like Martian language. I think it's supposed to be Martian, but it's like following this pilot in space. Very visual. This guy's art is sick. I love the really thick outlines and stuff, but his stuff is like really it's like alive, dude. It feels like there's so much motion in here. I really like this book. It's very short to read just because you can't read anything, so you're just looking at pictures pretty much. I feel like his stuff kind of gives me I don't want to say I feel like people compare stuff to Daniel Warren Johnson like too much, but it definitely has the same amount of like action. Like this stuff feels really alive. It's got a couple of these pages, which is so sick, of just like explaining things in diagrams in this other language. I don't want to show too much of this book. The coloring's great. The art's incredible. The story is cool. It's like really short and sweet and gets done exactly what it needs to get done. I don't know how easy it is to find. I found a used copy. Buy used books. You know the motto. So this one was like I got this for like $10. I'm sure you can find it places though. But Marth Valis, there's just no reason not to read it. It's light. It's fun. It's very sci-fi. I think we'll keep it short because this book's kind of short and sweet, man. Martha Valis, 4 out of 5. Would recommend. Up next, we got Planet Paradise by Jesse Lonergan. He is writing and drawing it. Y'all know I love it when we get a writer artist on a book. Makes me want to read it more. This one is also a sci-fi book, similar to Martha Valis. I feel like these are like, not that they're going for the same thing, but it's like a similar genre, you know? This book, again, is a little bit smaller than a normal trade, bigger than Martha Valis. But Jesse Lonergan is a sick artist. He is like the best in the game at layouts, or one of the best. He's got this really unique kind of like I follow him on Instagram, and he uses like stamps and all this like crazy stuff to add these textures to his drawings and colors. This story is about people who are on a rocket and they're going to Planet Paradise, and then something happens that sidetracks them, and it kind of follows these characters. I love when books do stuff like this. Maybe I'm just a sucker for it. I feel like this is like a. I don't know. I just like it. I feel like it's a good touch. It's mostly about Eunice, and Glenda, who are on the planet. Glenda's kind of like a grumpy, jaded space captain, and then Eunice is one of the passengers. I don't want to say that much because it's a short story. It's another one where it's like, why wouldn't you read this? It's short and sweet. Very well done. I'm starting to find that I like these like shorter stories recently. They've just, like I've been picking up some anthologies and stuff, and I've come to admire when somebody can make a good one and like start it up and land it so quickly on a story. Because when I'm making stories, I always drag it out, make it way longer probably than it needs to be. um, yeah, I again don't want to go too far into it, but Jesse Lonergan is sick. This is not like my favorite art of his, but his storytelling is just so good. His colors too. Love it. Planet Paradise, no reason not to read it. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Up next we have All Against All by Alex Packnadel, drawn by Casper Wingard. I think is how you say it. I have not read that much Alex Packnadel. There's another book on here that he co-wrote. Casper Wingard, I've seen his art, but haven't read that many series that he's actually done. And he's off the chain, bro. I mean, you could buy this book just for his art, just for Wingard's art. I didn't know he had such a deep, like, animal bag. Like, everything I've seen of him are, like, his people, which are kind of, like, simple, I want to say. Like, even this one, the shading and, like, the textures on here are sick. But he does, like, these really, he has this, like, pastel palettes that he uses from what I've seen, and like really simple people. Like I'm reading the Power Fantasy right now by him, and I feel like I've just never gotten a chance to see him draw these animals, but he is sick with it. The gist of the story, this is like one of the most unique books I've ever read. Like the pitch is crazy. It's like following these aliens, who are these guys, who they are like, they have these bodies, but they are these little like squid monsters that attach to the bodies. And so they have like a research base where they're looking for more bodies for them to attach to because they need them for an alien war. It's crazy, but stay with me now. And one of these aliens have come to Earth long after the Earth has been, like destroyed for lack of a better term. And there's a human, and they take lots of animals from Earth, and they're like trying to see if any of these bodies can work for them, right? So you saw the gorilla, it's like a polar bear, got a pig here, all sorts of little stuff. I listened to an interview with the writer of this, Alex Pagnadell, and he described this book as the movie Alien, but the alien is the human, and the humans are aliens. So it's like swapping places. And that is definitely what it is. I think there's more going on in it than like that. Well, I mean, not that Alien's simple, but like there's like real characters that you care about. And there's one human and he doesn't talk much. So you're really spending a lot of time with these alien characters and like listening to their lives and their hopes and dreams. And I feel like this book is like the hardest thing to pull off, like art wise. I like just making an alien the main character for me can a lot of times be like, oof, this is tough. I really relate to humans in these crazy situations. And they're like, weird octopus monsters. And like just getting the audience to like relate, or not the audience, but to get readers to relate to these characters, I think is such a feat unto itself. It's very well done. I think that this book, I don't know how many people have read it. I've heard a little bit of buzz about it, but I think it's like truly a creative feat to have created something like this. All Against All, I will give a 4 out of 5, would recommend. Up next, we have Hard Boiled by Frank Miller and Geof Darrow. Frank Miller, arguably the GOAT. I think a lot of people would be happy with him being the GOAT. I'm trying to read more of his stuff. I recently read Batman Year One by him. I just bought Sin City, the first book, so I'm going to read that too. Geof Darrow, I've read Shaolin Cowboy. He's like one of these European-inspired guys. He's an all-timer. Worked on The Matrix. Hugely accomplished artist and is famous for this incredibly detailed artwork. Like, this is nuts, dude. This book is about this guy, forget his name, but he is like a tax collector, I think is his title, but he like works for these soulless corporations in a dystopian future, and it's kind of following the strife of his life and the different ways that they try to like control him. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, if you're seeing this art, you should check this out. Again, I feel like this book, there's also just like no reason not to read this book. If you're a little squeamish about blood and guts and stuff, maybe not, but like, this is nuts, dude. Like, he's out of his gourd. And the artwork is really good. And I'm going to have a very hot take here, but I wonder if Geof Darrow's art is so detailed that it becomes distracting in a comic book, if that makes sense. I feel like his stuff is there's so much happening in every panel that I think distracts from the flow of reading a comic book, which is really important for me. Which is tough, because like this stuff is beautiful, and I'm so glad that like this exists, but I feel like it can be tough. I spent so much time looking at every page. I would look at these pictures for so long, I'd have to reread the page just so I understood what was happening again. Like, this is crazy. That being said, I think that this feels like it was made to be turned into a movie at some point. I'm kind of shocked that it wasn't. I don't know if the movie that they made would be good, because I feel like there's a lot of ways to like mess this up. But it's it's pretty good, bro. Like it's just there's just no dead weight on it. You know, it comes in, does exactly what it needs to do, and gets out. Again, don't want to show too much. This is a really quick read. Like you can see, there's not a ton of dialogue in here. If you do take a long time, it's going to be because, like me, you are staring at all of these pictures for, like, hours. But Hard Boiled, I think it's great. I think it's pretty good, man. Give it a 4 out of 5. No reason not to read it. Up next, we got Chicken Devil, written by Brian Buccellato, and Hayden Sherman. It's been me on my mission to read all Hayden Sherman books. I think there's another one I got in the stack over here, too. Chicken Devil follows this guy. You know I'm terrible with character names. But he owns a hot chicken restaurant and through a series of tragic events gets involved with these mobsters, these like vaguely European mobsters. And he has to go on this like revenge mission to kill a bunch of mobsters. Is like a very loose way to describe it. Which sounds really silly, but I think that this book has a lot of heart. This book, I don't know the order exactly when this came out, but this feels like around when he made Above Snakes, when Hayden Sherman did. The art style is definitely very similar. And it's just dripping with sauce, bro. Like the vibes in this book are incredible, I think. It's very funny. It's very lighthearted. Awful things happen in this book, but the tone of the book stays with this like kind of silly, like it knows how crazy the situation is and like leans into it. And honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. I think this book for me would be a 5 out of 5 if they didn't do the thing at the end where they act like there's gonna be another one, but they're not coming back to Chicken Devil. Hayden Sherman is like absolute A-lister. I don't think he's coming back to it. I think Buccellato too does a lot of like really big books. There's no way these guys come back to this book, which makes me sad because I was really hoping they'd wrap it up nice. But Hayden Sherman's art is sick. As always, so much character. The colors complement this quite a bit. I don't know who colors it. He might color himself. Yeah, I think he's coloring himself here. It's sick, dude. Like, look at this. These layouts are crazy. He gets like these insane perspective shots, and I think it really makes this book. Buccellato's writing is also very funny. I really liked it. I always get kind of worried when people go for this like funny, relatable guy. You know what I mean? Where it's just like funny, relatable white dude in the story that usually has like a horrible case of main character face. With this stuff. But he doesn't do it. This guy is funny. Like is having a hard go of it, but I think he's very, very funny. The side characters have good stuff to say. The mom is quite a character. It's great. I don't want to show too much more. Chicken Devil, it's just this one book as far as I know. The ending is going to make you think there's more. There isn't. This is it. I would give it a 4 out of 5. It was really, really close to being a 5 out of 5, but I hate it when they do the come back next time and there isn't one. It's disappointing. Yeah, it's a great book. Up next, we got We Called Them Giants by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans. It's the same team that did Die, the D&D book. If any of you have read that. I am still like in the thick of Die. I never finished it, but I really admire Stephanie Hans' art. Kieran Gillen's writing in that book is a little bit too, can be a little bit emo for me at times, but I like him overall. This book is one of those where like I started reading and I didn't put it down until I finished the book. I think it's really good. I think I was left at the end with this feeling of like, what was that about? Like, what? I don't know. It feels like I'm supposed to leave with a lesson. I don't know what that lesson is. But that's fine. It follows this main girl here. I'm awful with names. But she is, she wakes up in her house and all of her family is gone. And then she walks outside and everybody's gone except for like a smattering of people. So she runs into this girl that she like goes to school with. And they're trying to figure out where everybody has went, why this has happened. Shortly afterwards, these big monster alien dudes show up and add to the like mystery of what's happening. So it's got like that post-apocalyptic twist. It's got a little bit of that sci-fi stuff. What I love about this book is that it doesn't spend a bunch of time explaining Jack. And you are just sitting there with her, and you have to figure it out. You have lots of questions. Kieran Gillen is not interested in giving you clear answers in any of it, which I love. There's lots of characters like this gang of people who live in the city, who I think a lesser writer would delve into them a lot more, and Kieran Gillen does not, and I love him for it. This book's good, man. It's another one. I know I keep saying this, but a lot of these short books, it's just like no reason not to read this, you know? Even if you're left like me, and at the end you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this now. I think you're just better for it. You know, it's a good story. It's so well done. They're so uniquely alien, like these giant things. And again, nothing is explained about it, so you're just like watching them and trying to figure it out, and it puts you in the position that the characters are in, where they're just sitting there and they're like, "What the fuck is going on here, man?" Yeah, it's great. It's great. I would recommend everybody read this. I feel like I gotta say 4 out of 5, even though I don't know what exactly they could do better here. You know, it's good. It's really good. I just feel like a 5 out of 5 masterpiece leaves you with this feeling long after it, and the feeling I was left with after this was like vaguely confused, but like mostly satisfied. You know, so I'm gonna give this one a 4 out of 5. But I do think that everyone should read this. I just don't think your life's gonna be worse for it. You might be left feeling like meh, but you're not gonna be like that sucked. We call them giants. 4 out of 5. Would recommend. Really like this book. Up next, we got DC vs. Vampires All Out War, written by Matthew Rosenberg and Alex Paknadel, same guy who did All Against All. Drawn by Pascal Colano, maybe? I don't know. I'm trying my best here. I loved DC vs. Vampires, the original run with with Rosenberg and James Tynion. I didn't realize it. Well, I saw this and I was like, not all that. Ooh, I put this on backwards. Embarrassing. And I read that and I was like, this is great. I don't need anything more from this. This was a great story. But then I saw that there was more. And I was like, different artist. Otto Schmidt draws the first one, and he's absolutely sick with it. New artist. I don't know. Then I finally pulled the trigger because they're continuing the story after this. Back with Otto Schmidt. This book, I didn't like very much. I think this beginning part I thought was interesting. This is not Pascal Colano doing the art. And there's like bits and pieces. There's some short stories in this that I really like. But it's just following Deathstroke in this world that's been ruined by vampires, following the events of the first book. I don't want to get too into it in case you haven't read that. But it just didn't do it for me. It just felt like, what are we doing here? You know? Like, do I like any of these characters? Do I love them? If they died on the next page, would I be sad about it? Would I care any which way? And I feel like the answer is no. There's a lot of times where I don't even know what is the plan? I'm like, there's all sorts of DC characters in here, and it's like, was this guy introduced before? Am I just forgetting about him? I don't know. So this first story is good. I liked it, but most of the book looks like this. It was black, white, and red the whole way through, which I didn't love. I feel like jumping from Otto Schmidt's to this is rough, you know? I think the artist is like pretty good. I think the style works or could work in another book, but having it established in the old way and then coming here, it doesn't even feel like it's in the same series, you know, like at all. And it kind of carries on with this into the second book. I won't flip too many more pages in case I get some accidental spoilers. I didn't love this book. Didn't love them. Read both of them. Own both of them. I'll give DC vs. Vampires like a 2 out of 5. Up next, we got Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, written and drawn by Patrick Horvath. I do not really rock with horror. Your boy gets scared very easily. But love Patrick Horvath's art. everybody's ranting and raving about how good this book is. The pitch is crazy. It's where it's Scary Town meets Dexter, which I'm sure you've all heard by now. It got some awards buzz. So I read it, and it really freaked me out, man. Really freaked me out. You follow Sam the Bear. Remember that name. Iconic character. That's a good sign, right? If I can remember the name. Who is like a cold-blooded serial killer, bro. Like, for real. For real. And it follows Sam living in this town of like happy animal people who are just like all like happy-go-lucky, living the dream. Nothing ever goes wrong here. And things go wrong because there's a crazy serial killer here. I'm not going to go too far into it because I feel like reading this book, there's a lot of good twists in here. But that's the vibe. I mean, if you like horror, you'll probably like this book. I still liked it, even though it scared the life out of me at certain points. Not like jump scary, because you can't really do jump scares in comics, but just this like this awful feeling left in my body after reading this book. The characters are very well done. I feel like there's a lot of interesting, things will happen, and then watching not just the main characters, but all the characters in town kind of process the information, I thought was very, very entertaining and well done. Probably will never read this again. Got this fancy hardcover edition that IDW had. I'm glad I have it. Glad I read it. Scary, bro. It's like for real scary. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. I feel like I'm not going to read this again, but the quality of it is very clear to me. So if you're a horror guy, you should read this book. Or gal, my bad. You should read this book. I don't even know how to rate it because I'm not reading this again. It's too spooky for me. Too spooky. We'll say 4 out of 5. I got it. I'm never reading horror books, bro. Up next, we have Black Hammer Omnibus 3. I didn't realize this was like out in the world, and I spotted it on In-Stock Trades and had to get it. It's written by Jeff Lemire. It's drawn by Caitlin Yarsky. There's a little bit that is also drawn by Malachi Ward and Matthew Sheehan. And the artists are out of their gourd, dude. Everybody knows who Jeff Lemire is. He's a very good writer. Black Hammer is like his baby. This is, along that like main storyline of Black Hammer. Following our girl, who I can't remember her name, of course. But she is Black Hammer's daughter. Lucy. There we go. Lucy. And yeah, obviously this is the third book in the series. I won't say too much in case you haven't read Black Hammer. I don't really know how many people haven't read Black Hammer, but are like into comics. It feels very popular. But Jeff Lemire's writing is still as good as ever. Caitlin Yarsky is a discovery for me. Never seen her before. Her art is incredible. These characters are also expressive. She has like such a unique style that's so like I don't know. It's just so simple and beautiful. There's not anything too crazy happening here. It's just well done expression work. It's well done character work. I feel like her action is a little funky sometimes, but like this is sick, dude. Getting pulled into the black hole and all that stuff. And it's great. I think that the character of Lucy is definitely the best part of this book. Is just like, living in her head and seeing how she processes a lot of this stuff. It gets a little corny for me at the end, but I always feel that way about Black Hammer. But Black Hammer is like this love letter to superhero books, and superhero books get kind of corny. So I think he's doing it on purpose. If you like the other ones, you should read this one. You definitely shouldn't jump in here. You should definitely read both the other omnibuses first before you go here. I still don't even necessarily feel like I'm the biggest Black Hammer fan. Yet here I am. I think I own every Black Hammer book. So clearly I like it. It's just usually after I'm done reading these, I kind of leave it going like, yeah, it's fine. It's at its best, I think, at the beginning, just kind of getting the look at Lucy's life. And all these things are happening. There's like a mystery. There's like lots of tension going on. It's good. Malachi Ward and Matthew Sheehan, maybe? I guess some of their art in here. They're also sick. I love their art. This book has inspired me to go and find other stuff from them. They're incredible. Like, this stuff is, again, very different style. I do actually think theirs and Caitlin Yarstey's style do mesh well together. Having them go back to back, because switching artists in the middle of a book can be really tough. I think they do it well. I think that there are really good sequences in this book. I think the characters, as always in Black Hammer books, are very good. I think the plot is a little bit silly for me, especially as we get into it. But that being said, Black Hammer, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Caitlin Yarstey, Malachi Ward, and Matt Sheehan. I'm for sure going to be finding more of their books and buying those. Up next, we got Batman First Night by Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins. Colors by Mike Spicer. This is following Batman, taking place back in the 30s and 40s, I want to say. 40s, probably. And it's just a Batman mystery, man. I saw the art style and I was really interested. I also like that it takes place in that time period. I like these Black Label oversized books where it's kind of more square pages than the other ones. And, I can't complain. I feel like this feels like it could be a DC animated movie, like those straight to DVD joints that they used to make. I always loved those. This feels like one of those. There's some really good, the art on every page is gorgeous. Mike Perkins is out of his gourd. It's unique style. I feel like I don't see this style used very much, because it still has those like really heavy like dark spots, those like inky blacks that comics are always using. But it feels very different. This feels so much more like a mature, older, wiser comic book. It makes it feel like a little bit elevated, even though it is just like, another silly Batman story. Not silly, but like, guy puts on a cape. This book uses a lot of like old school 40s lingo in it, which I really liked. It does a couple things that one could call corny. I didn't say that, but someone could say that, and I don't know that they'd be wrong. But I kind of like it. It all adds to the flavor of it. Batman is in town. There's senators are getting offed. Important people are getting killed. And there's been sightings of these scary monster men who are doing the job. So he has to figure out where these monster men are coming from, who they work for, while also establishing himself as Batman, because it's a very early Batman. He is not, like, seasoned, So he gets his ass beat a couple times in here. And he's, like, not sure, and he's, like, getting help from people. This is definitely not, like, an in-continuity Batman. I don't think there's any Alfred in this book, like, at all. Which I like. I like when stuff's out of continuity. I'm not trying to, read 400 books so I can understand the nuances. It's not really me. So it's nice that anyone can pick this up and enjoy it, and I really appreciate it for that. I had fun reading this. It's not the best book ever. It's not going to change your life, but that doesn't mean it's not, a good time. It definitely is. This whole thing. So there's minor spoiler, I guess, but there's this rabbi in this book that Batman keeps coming in and talking to. And I appreciate, any story that includes a rabbi when you don't have to. Because I've definitely never heard Batman speak to a rabbi before. But it feels very forced. Your boy is Jewish. I rock with the representation. Don't think any of this needs to be in here. He, rolls up on this rabbi and he's like, I just got my ass beat by these guys outside. And the rabbi's like, who else is getting their ass beat? The Jews in Germany right now. That Hitler, you see, he's a bad egg. And it's like, okay, thank you, Rabbi. Yes, you're right. Didn't totally get that. Put more rabbis in books, I guess. But it didn't feel like it made any sense to me, to be honest. I'll give, Batman First Night a 3 out of 5. It's not going to change your life, but it's a fun time, Up next, we got Old Dog, written and drawn by Declan Shalvey. We love a writer-artist. This follows Jack, I want to say. Do we get Jack Lynch? What a name. Jack Lynch, he is a spy. He's classic main character, James Bond secret agent type, except he's way more grizzled. He is not having fun with it. And it kind of follows him. He goes on this mission. He sees something he's not supposed to see, and it affects him and changes him and gives him these kind of like abilities, I'll say, without going too far into it. So he's like super soldier. When I first got the pitch for this, I thought it was just going to be like, kind of like an action movie type of deal, which I would have been absolutely here for. I love a good spy action, thriller kind of vibe. But this book, one, is definitely deeper than that. I think sometimes to its own detriment, but there's some real sci-fi freaky stuff happening in this book, which I think makes it much more interesting. Declan Shalvey's art is very good. I believe he's coloring himself as well. And his stuff is sick. The character of Jack Lynch, I think, is a little bit hard for me to, like, relate to and care about, I would say. There's some stuff that happens in here that I definitely, like, felt for him on. But I don't know if I would necessarily say I'm attached to Jack Lynch like that. I don't want to go too far into this book. This is all that's out right now, even though it is definitely going to continue. And yeah, spy book, a little bit of like crazy body horror stuff, a little bit of sci-fi. We'll give Old Dog a 3 out of 5. I'm definitely going to buy the next one. Up next, we have The Few. This is by Sean Lewis and Hayden Sherman. This book, one, is a very thick trade, which I really like, very much appreciate. I'm on the Sean Lewis train right now, where I just keep reading all of his stuff. This made a run. It is very good. I don't know if it's my favorite Sean Lewis, but it's up there. If it's not 1, it's like 2. It follows this girl who definitely has a name. Of course, I can't remember. But it's like in a post-apocalyptic kind of world. Like a lot of the states have gathered into these like crazy dense cities that are all ruled by like this big brother kind of thing. And then if you're not making it into one of the cities, you're kind of left in this wasteland where guys are going, Mad Max, and everybody's riding motorcycles and eating human hearts or whatever. It has devolved. And we follow this character who she is a soldier at the time, and then she finds this baby, and then it goes a little bit Lone Wolf and Cub of her being like, damn, do I really want to be a soldier now that I got this baby? It's like a very loose way to put it. There's lots of interesting characters that shows up. This is Hayden Sherman's first ever comic ever, it says in the back of this book, which is infuriating, honestly, because it's so good. So hearing that makes me a little sad. It's hard to go into this without giving certain things away, but there's a very good villain in this book. There are multiple villains, if you really think about it, but it's kind of this girl fighting against rebels who are just out on the loose. She's fighting against these crazy people who live in this like wasteland. She's fighting against the soldiers who think that she has, turned her back on their way of life. And the design of a lot of it is, I think, very interesting. Very muted color palette, but I think totally works. Totally aids this world. At no point was I like, dang, I wish this wasn't just like gray brown. I think it's perfect. Everything is working in unison with this book. It's a little graphic, we got a lot of blood in here. A lot of nasty stuff happens. So if you're not into that, I mean, if you're not into that, you probably shouldn't go off my recommendations, because I love me some. I just like when the violence feels like it has real consequences and like things are actually dangerous and you can really get hurt. And this definitely has that. The villain, or one of the villains in here, it was this guy. I can't remember his name. I don't know if it says it on here. This guy is sick. Incredible. Doesn't get that many like lines. They don't really let him cook too bad, but every time he shows up, he's awesome. I really love him. I picked up this book. I couldn't put it down. Read it the whole way through. I really, really loved this book. If anything that I mentioned is a genre that you have like shown interest in, I think you should read it. I think I'm going to give The Few a 5 out of 5. I think this book is a banger masterpiece. Hayden Sherman, is he the GOAT? Will he be the GOAT? I don't know. I really like him. Sean Lewis, incredible writer. I like all of his independent stuff that I've read so far. Would recommend this to anybody. It's a great book. Just go read it, man. Just go read it. Up next, we got What's the Furthest Place from Here, written by Matthew Rosenberg, illustrated by Tyler Boss. These are the same guys who did Four Kids Walk Into a Bank. This is their ongoing series. It's another very chunky trade. Follows this like post-apocalyptic world. There's no adults. It's all kids. So it's a lot of like teenagers running around. There's all these rivaling gangs in this place that have, they're hiding out in these different buildings. And there's like a weird like hierarchy. There's like a definite system that has been worked out here, which kind of implies that the world has been this way for a very long time. It is unclear exactly what happens to you when you become an adult, but you're like taken away, essentially, by these like freaky nun monster things that go through. Again, you know me. I'm never trying to say too much on any of these. I think you should go in blind. Love these chapter breaks that he does. They're so good. There's names for all of them. Some of the chapters are like 2 pages long. Tyler Boss's artwork is really good. His simple like color palettes go a very long way. I love these like dark outlines in all of his characters. It's like, I feel like this is like classic cartooning happening in this book, which I definitely think he's capable of. I love his work. And Four Kids Walk Into a Bank is the only other one. Here we go. The Strangers are the freaky nun women. It's so good. It's so good. It's definitely dark. Some freaky stuff happens. I believe that this, like, on its genre stuff, it says horror, and you should know I'm a wimp about horror. So if I'm reading it, it's not that scary, but it is very like gloomy and dark, and there's this like dark cloud hanging over everything that happens in this book. The characters are incredible. The dialogue by Matthew Rosenberg is always so good. Specifically on his independent stuff. I haven't read all of his, DC stuff. Or his Marvel stuff, for that matter. I don't know which one he's working for now. But I haven't read that much of either of those. This stuff that he does is, I think, at the top of his game. He does these, like, snarky teenagers. He also did We Can Never Go Home, that I think I reviewed. Not reviewed, but I talked about last month. And the dialogue from these characters is so believable. It's so funny. It's so heartfelt. You just can't help but care about these characters, man. Which makes all this awful, awful stuff they go through even worse as they do it. They get into this fight at the beginning of the book that leads them to abandon this place they've called home. And so they journey across this world that Matthew Rosenberg has built. And it's so interesting. Like, they just carry on. I think it's a great way to build a story where you can like really show off this world you built by having these characters travel across it. And I have already bought the other two. Yeah, what's the furthest place from here? It feels like I'd be jumping the gun to call this 5 out of 5. I think it's really good. We'll give it a high 4 out of 5 because there are some bits in here where they get to like this circus town where I feel like everything kind of slows down in here. But this is a very good series, high quality stuff. I would recommend this to anybody. I believe it's like wrapping up right now in single issues. It's on this like last arc here, but I really like it. What's the furthest place from here? Great book. Last one is a doozy, a big, thick book. We have Hitman by John McCrea and Garth Ennis. It says Omnibus Volume 1. I'm going to be furious if they release another one of these. Surely there's more stories in here because it ends really abruptly, but like, this is 1,000 pages, bro. We can't get all this in one book. We got to have it be a Volume 1. Anyway, as follows, The Hitman right here. I forget his name, as always. You guys know me. Or Tommy, that's what it is. Tommy Monahan, the hitman, who is a hitman who lives in Gotham City. He can read minds, and he has X-ray vision, I think, through very silly old DC events. He got, like, random superpowers. He's just, like, a normal dude who got a bunch. It says a lot of the classic Garth Ennis stuff. You know, he, I think, is on the Mount Rushmore of comic book writers, me personally. I just think he's very good. His dialogue is like the best. And this is no different. It's like, I feel like at the time it would have been like, it would have felt more crazy to have a superhero quote unquote guy who, just hung out in a bar with his friends and was making fun of other superheroes. He's like clowning them, and there's a bunch of like really silly superheroes in here that he goes and kills. Reading it now, though, I feel like it has been corrected. I feel like time has caught up with it a lot, thanks to Garth Ennis. Of like people kind of taking apart superheroes and deconstructing them a little bit. Yeah, this first story is crazy, where he's like fighting like demons from hell or something, like off the rip. It's crazy. It's a crazy storyline, but you're not really here for like the plot per se of a lot of these books. There is one later on where he fights a bunch of like I think it's MI6 guys later on that's really good, and that one, I think the plot really goes places, but really it's just like following Tommy in his life. Terrible things happen to him all the time. He's a hitman. He specifically tries to be a hitman for superpowered people. Sometimes superheroes, but he's, it's one of these things where I only kill bad guys. I'm not a hitman that kills good guys, because then I'd be a bad guy. Is what it goes with. This book has a lot going on. It is not my favorite Garth Ennis. I don't think that's his fault. It feels very tame for a Garth Ennis book. Feels like he's got the bumpers on for sure. John McCrae's art, I really grew to love. I think that he's as good as it gets with like these. Like, look at this. This panel's mostly black, but we can still see it. Like, illustrates so much. He has these really cartoony, like goofy characters that I think really work well with Garth Ennis's writing. But it's just kind of following him around. I would say that this comic isn't like going anywhere. You know what I mean? If you're here just to watch this guy as kind of like day to day, then you'll be happy. But if you're like, there needs to be some like big crescendo at the end, or like, where's the long game here? I don't think there is one. Honestly, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's like a choice that has to be made when you're making these books. This book, it took me forever to read. I was like reading this like every day for a while there. And it's like, I just don't, it feels very stuck in the time that it was made. I wouldn't necessarily call this like a timeless book. I think that's okay. But I don't know if I would recommend this book to everybody. I liked it. It's goofy, it's silly, it's fun. But I think I have to give Hitman a 3 out of 5. And that was my last book. That was it. So that is everything I read in the month of November. As always, if you have any good comic books that you have read, please leave them in the comments below, because I'm always looking for new ways to spend my money on comic books. Yeah. Until next time, I will be hitting y'all with what I read in December. Thank you for watching if you made it this far, and see ya.